All right. I think we are recording. Well, welcome everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us for our fall information session for our school psychology program that we offer here at Florida International University. My name is Andy Pham. I am the program director of the school psychology program. We also have our faculty as well as some of our students. So I'll have them introduce themselves as we'll start with introductions. So I see Dr. Shale Griffith. Do you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Shale Griffith. I am an assistant professor in the school psychology program. I teach mostly so far psychoeducational assessment courses to our first and second year students. And I also have a research program that focuses on early childhood school readiness and kind of learning and development as it relates to digital media use and experiences with digital media, especially at home. So yeah, glad that you're all here. I hope you can get all of your questions answered and don't be shy in asking.
Wonderful. I see Dr. Martha Pelias. Can you share a few words about yourself?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to see you all. My name is Marta Pelaez. I'm a professor in the program of school psychology in my area. My PhD or my studies were in and are in developmental psychology with an area of specialization in early learning, early social learning. In particular, I look at problems between mother-child interaction. I have studied infant depression and phenomena like social referencing, joint attention, and more in particular lately, early interventions with babies and infants that are siblings of children with autism. So it's a pleasure to have you all. And like Dr. Shell Griffith just said, please join in with questions and comments, whatever you feel like.
Thank you. I don't see our fourth faculty member. Hopefully he'll join us, and that's Philip Lazarus. So we'll keep an eye out for him. But we do also have a few of our current students. If you can share a little bit about yourself. I see Jasenia. Do you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Hi, my name is Jasenia Ramos, and I'm a first year student. I'm very excited to transition into school psychology as I've been a teacher for the past 12 years. So I'm excited for this journey, and I look forward to meeting some of you.
Great. Thanks, Jasenia. We have Melissa.
Hello, I'm Melissa. This is my first semester at FIU. I have my master's in school psychology, but FIU has been great for the education specialist. And I'm also a Project Dig fellow, which I believe we'll talk about Project Dig a little bit later.
Yes, we'll absolutely talk about that. Thank you. I also see late Amy. Want to share a little bit about yourself?
Yes, hi. I'm Amy. I'm another of the first year school psychology students. I was a teacher for several years. I taught K through 5 special education previously. I also worked on sort of like the staffing and administrative side of special education. And I've been interested in school psychology for a few years, so I'm excited to be in this program and pursuing that new direction.
Wonderful. Thank you. Let's see. I do see one of our graduate assistants, Acacia.
Hi everyone, my name is Acacia Russell. Yes, I am a graduate research assistant for Project Dig. So I hope that everybody enjoys the information session, and I'm happy to chime in whenever necessary.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. So we have introductions. This is sort of the outline of the session. So we did introductions. We'll talk a little bit about what does a school psychologist do. We'll also talk about outcomes. Graduates from our program, what do they do afterwards? Obviously, a lot of them do work in schools, but there are also other options as well and career pathways. We'll talk a little bit about coursework, field experiences, research experiences and opportunities. We'll also talk a little bit about the application process and how we do admissions. As Melissa mentioned, we'll also talk about Project Dig as well as other financial supports. I'm sure there are some questions about that, as well as our students can share more about their first year experience, and also answer any questions you may have. You're welcome to ask in the chat as well. Oh, and I forgot, John Smith. Do you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Good evening. My name is John Smith. I'm actually in the third year. I'm currently doing my internship at the Miami-Dade County Public Schools. Prior to coming in and being accepted to the program, I worked for a decade in the Boston and Brockton Public Schools in Massachusetts, and was an Army chaplain right before applying, while I was applying in the program. So my goal was to get back into the school system, and it's been a great experience. Working in Miami is a very large school district, so there is a lot to learn. And I encourage you all to, continue on this journey and give it 100%. Do your research, and if you have any questions about the program, feel free to reach out to any of us. There is a school psychology student association as well that you might be able to connect with. But thank you for having us all. Thank you, Dr. Pham, and everyone that's here for showing up.
My apologies, John. I did see you, so
No, it's okay. It's
no
okay.
worries.
I'm kind of, I have some stage fright, public speaking, so it's all good.
Oh no,
No,
you're perfect.
I thought I went under the cover, but I'm good. Thank you.
And I think Kendall, our other GA, I think she's here. Do you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm on my phone because my computer's being weird, and so I don't know how to work the Zoom app. But hi, everyone, I'm Kendall. Yeah, I am one of the GAs. I work specifically with Project Crystal. But I am so happy that you guys are all here. You're having the opportunity just to learn more. And I hope we can answer all your questions.
Great. And Laura also reminded me she is here too, one of our other first year students. Laura?
Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Puerta. I have a background in psychology and I currently work as a teacher, and I'm really excited to have joined the school psychology program. I'm a first year student and I am also part of the Project DIG Fellowship.
Great. I think Dr. Lazarus will join us shortly, so I know he's running a little bit late, but we will continue. So we have great representation of our students and faculty here. So, let's see. Okay. So in the chat, I would love to hear more about you all, as well as why are you interested in school psychology? You can share a little bit about what you know about school psychology. I will be honest, school psychology is not a well-known field, or at least we haven't done a very good job talking about what school psychologists do, and that's been sort of a national issue. So if you can provide a little bit of information in the chat, who you are and where you're from, as well as why you're interested in school psychology, yeah, feel free to spend a minute or two in the chat to provide that information. And while people are writing or thinking or contemplating the chat, I think Dr. Lazarus is here.
Yes, I'm definitely,
yes,
definitely here. I went to your Zoom site, Andy, and so that was the issue. I'll try a different Zoom site, the one that Acacia just sent me. So, but I am here, and I'm very willing to talk to everybody and tell them what a great program we have and answer any questions people may have for us. Okay?
Great. Thanks, Phil. So please continue to write in the chat. Why are you interested in school psychology? Share a little bit about yourself. Thank you, Katie. So you're a math teacher, works with parents, adolescents, and very interested in psychology. Wonderful. Okay, great. Some other comments. So Rosalia talked a little bit about her background, bachelor's in early childhood education with a minor in psychology. Oh, your godmother was a school psychologist in Miami-Dade. Wonderful. When Francis, this is sent directly to me, but I'm sure she won't mind if I share it. So a background ABA, and would love to incorporate behavioral principles in the school setting. Wonderful. So yeah, a lot of applicants tend to have a psychology background, but we also get applicants from education, even English, business. So it is helpful to have some background in psychology and education, but we've had students from a variety of educational experiences, work experience. So we do have a diverse group of students and applicants. Great. Feel free to continue sharing, and we'll continue. So what does a school psychologist do? So as I mentioned before, it's not a well-known field. And one of the reasons is that historically, a school psychologist works with a specific population of students, namely students with disabilities. At the same time, our field has evolved where we're working with not just a particular group of students, but with all students. So our main goal as mental health professionals is that we try to promote positive learning and mental health development of all children. We also collaborate with other professionals in the schools, teachers, school counselors, school social workers, other professionals, speech language pathologists. So we work as a team, as a multidisciplinary team. But we also have a specific skill set that others do not. And so that is also what we prepare our students to engage in understanding of screening and evaluation processes. As we talked about in terms of mental health, we also assess for academic and behavioral concerns. And part of the reason why we do that is that we're trying to inform ways in which we can support students with certain challenges or those who are at risk of disabilities. As part of our role, we also gather information as well as consult and collaborate with parents and teachers. As we know, parents and teachers do hold a wealth of information about a student, so that is very valuable when we make decisions about supports. A large part of our role is we do conduct psychoeducational evaluations. So when we work individually with a student or a student who may be referred for special education, we do assessment and testing. And again, part of the goal is to determine the best placement, but also interventions that can help support students with difficulties or even unique strengths. So we also work not just for children with challenges, but those who may are gifted or unique intellectual or academic strengths. As part of our role, we also develop and implement social emotional learning programs, interventions, as well as behavioral intervention planning. So when we collect data about students, we also observe students in the classroom. We try to understand some of the potential causes, antecedents, and consequences so that we can develop a behavioral plan. And also, we are part of a crisis intervention team along with other professionals. So how do we respond to crises, but also how do we prevent these issues from happening too? So as you can see, we cover a lot of roles in which we provide various coursework as well as field experiences, which we'll talk about in the program. I know this was also a question about how do we differentiate the role of a school psychologist with the role of a school counselor? There is overlap. Our main sort of goal is to ensure students are successful, providing mental health support when needed, academic support. So you can see in this table some slight differences, even how we conceptualize our role. We are problem solvers. Often we view the child as more or less a puzzle and try to understand gather information to best address the issue. So we use a lot of data to make informed decisions, and we try to solve an issue through a multidisciplinary team process. At the same time, school counselors, they help students with career readiness. They help with academic planning. They also do counseling, obviously, along with school psychologists, but they may also provide more counseling related to adjustment issues, any academic issues. At the same time, for school psychologists, we probably work with students with more significant behavioral challenges and working individually or with groups on children who may have disabilities, social skills training, for example, for school psychologists. In terms of job duties, I've elaborated a little bit with school psychologists. We do conduct evaluations. School counselors don't necessarily do the types of assessments that we do, but they may provide support or gather information to help address educational planning or academic planning. In terms of work setting, as we look into the terms of the title, we obviously do a majority of our school psychologists work in school settings. However, there are students who do, or school psychologists that work in community health centers and even clinics, whereas school counselors primarily work in the schools. The education requirements are slightly different. So the minimum degree for a school psychologist is a specialist degree, and often we describe the specialist as a degree that is beyond the master's. We don't offer a master's as part of our program. There are some programs that do, but the specialist is more or less a terminal degree or the minimum to be certified as a school psychologist in the schools. So you can see even a slight difference in terms of credit hours, whereas for school counselors, they require a master's. And typically for a school counselor, our master's degree is no more than 60 credits for certification of the state. Whereas for a lot of programs here in Florida for school psychology, they're actually at least 70 or even up to 80 credit hours. Average salary, I would just say be cautious of this because this is an average. It's not starting salary, and there is definitely a range of salaries, what's starting or those who have years of experience, as well as regional differences. Certain regions of the US do pay more than others. So, but the average salary, at least according to our National Association of School Psychology, is $74,000. It is slightly less with school counselors, and that is based on information I pulled from the U.S. News and World Report. But again, consider regional differences that may depend on your roles as well as other factors that could influence salary. So that's just a little bit about differences between the roles. As I mentioned, in terms of where they work, majority do work in public school settings, but you could see, again, this is from our National Association of School Psychologists. There are some who do work in other school settings, private schools, colleges, universities, more in terms of teaching or academia. Independent practice, we'll talk about one of the unique opportunities for graduates, particularly as they go through postgraduate experiences and supervision. They are able or eligible to receive licensure at the specialist level to do private practice. So not every state does that. Florida is rather unique and provides those opportunities for those who have a specialist degree in licensure. There are individuals who work at the State Department of Education. Actually, yesterday I invited one of our alum who works currently at the Florida Department of Education as a school psychology consultant. So not many, but there are positions available at the state level. And also a very few also work in clinical, hospital, medical settings. So yeah. In terms of job outlook, it is great. There is a huge need for school psychologists, not only in Florida, but nationally. These are just a few sort of statistics based on our program. So a large or a majority of our graduates do have a job working in schools after graduation. They often receive offers even before they graduate, which is excellent. A small percentage do pursue doctoral study. According to U.S. News and World Report, is considered top 40 best jobs. I think even years ago, we were actually top 10. So it has drifted down a little bit, but it's still considered one of the best jobs according to U.S. News and World Report. For certification, we are certified at pre-K to 12. So there are opportunities, obviously, to work at pre-K level. And we do provide training preparation as well. And as I mentioned before, with additional years of experience after graduating, graduates can be eligible for licensure. Dr. Lassus, you want to share more about outcomes of students?
Sure. In regard to licensure, we have a lot of our students after a number of years. Typically, if they do go into private practice, then what ends up happening, they're working full-time in the schools, and they may spend two evenings or Saturday in private practice. So it's not that unusual for this to occur. Most do not go full-time into private practice because they get pretty decent benefits as a school psychologist, including their medical benefits, and because of the fact that most of the incoming students in our program are female, they find it easier to have a good, stable, full-time position rather than go completely into private practice, especially because of the benefits they receive. So, but we do have maybe about 5 to 10% of our students do part-time private practice. Mm-hmm.
Great. Thanks, Phil. And just a sample in terms of where our graduates end up doing or where they end up going. So a large majority, as I mentioned, work in schools. They also work in schools across the country, not just in Florida, although a good portion do stay in the Miami-Dade area or Broward or Palm Beach. But we do prepare students to work in many other school settings and districts as well. We also have had a few that work in clinical settings and also those who pursue doctoral study. So you can see a sample of sites, placements, or settings in terms of employment and other settings in graduate study. Okay. So just a little bit more about our program, and Dr. Pelaez and Dr. Griffith will share more in terms of research experiences, and Dr. Lessers will share more about field experiences. We offer an in-person program, so we're not an online program, although we do offer a few online courses and a hybrid course. But we offer 73 credits. We do expect that students to be on campus. And part of the reason for why is we are an intensive program, but we also appreciate and value interactions between students and faculty, and also providing close supervision in terms of developing field experiences, clinical experiences. So that is something that we do value as part of our program. And one of the reasons why we opt for this model. We do offer a model of scientist practitioner training, emphasizing culture responsive practices and social justice. We are a nationally approved program from NAS, or the National Association of School Psychologists, and we're also a state-approved program by Florida. We do require at least a 3-year minimum of graduate study, and this is full-time. It's typically 2 years of courses, as well as the final year being a full-time internship. So students can enroll in the program part-time. It does mean a little bit longer time in the program, but everyone needs to do the internship full-time. Full-time meaning 5 days a week, 1,200 hours in total. So it's pretty much you're there as if you're practicing school psychologist every day of the week. So it is something that we want to make sure students are aware of, applicants are aware of. A lot of the internships are paid. So that is great, particularly since if you're working there full time, there should be some incentives and benefits. So, so most are paid in Florida. Out of state, it will vary too. Some districts do provide benefits, some do not. And so we do help and assist students in preparing for internship. And some of our second year cohort is preparing right now, since the application deadlines are typically nationally between November, as early as November or October up through January, or even much later. And as I mentioned before, we offer the educational specialist degree, which is the minimum required to be a certified school psychologist. So briefly about courses, as we mentioned, in terms of the roles, we prepare students in a variety of skills and skill sets. So I'm not going to read off everyone, but you can see here in terms of assessment, we also prepare students with intervention, counseling, as well as consultation, working with parents and teachers and using effective listening, as well as communication skills. We also have a research measurement as part of our coursework. There's no thesis as part of our program, but we do encourage students, or require students, I should say, to work with faculty on a project. So that could be an independent project, assisting faculty on their projects, depending on students' interest. In addition, we do have a statistics course and single subject design course that Dr. Pelias teaches. Dr. Pelias, want to share a little bit more about your course?
Yeah, I can, if you want, I can also share, if you want, quickly about the research in case
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
interested. Well, the way I quickly conceptualize my work and the work I do with my students, it's basically you can section it in different areas of social learning. So early on, I did work on attachment and attachment processes and how is that babies begin to form certain different types of attachments to their caregivers, whether it was insecure or secure attachments. And that work was much earlier on. We are retaking that line of research now. Some students are interested in how in these separation problems that occur typically at schools when the mothers and the kids separate for the first time, or during the pandemic. We did some work there on attachment and separation. Another line of research that I really enjoy very much, and I haven't retaken, but was very strong at some point, was the acquisition of fears. How it is that very early on we acquire fears, whether it's fear of strangers, fear to the dark, and that sort of fears. I mean, we never go into school phobias because that's typically developed much later on. And I'm giving you this repertoire just so in case, because I'm flexible with students, as long we are having 2 or 3 students involved in a project, typically they talk to me about their preferences. One line that is very strong now and that I'm collaborating with other universities is on language, but not language as language acquisition, the full-blown language, but more like 3, 6 months old, 8 months old, 1-year-old kids and how they develop the early phonics vocalizations, and how is it that we shape those via vocal imitation, adult vocal imitation. And there's another phenomenon very important that in the literature is known as motherly speech, which is when we talk to babies, like using these high-pitched tones to gather their attention. So we've been making comparisons between motherly speech and vocal imitation. And we're finding out that vocal imitation repeatedly, it's very reliable for between 3 and 6 months for strengthening the child's vocal sounds and giving an opportunity to model and to learn others. And finally, without burying you more, there's another area that it's very early social communication. And that has to do with, again, very early on, how is it that we engage in eye contact and orienting responses towards adults, and how this orientation gradually shapes into joint attending. Joint attending is a cognitive behavior, so to speak, cognitive, but we from a behavioral perspective have studied it and look at it as a prerequisite for a more advanced, complex social phenomena like referencing. How is it that children reference others for cues about how to behave, especially in ambiguous situations where they don't know what to do? So the referencing phenomenon is very critical so all these assessments, when you get to learn them in school psychology, fundamentally are based on skills that have been studying and have been deconstructed in laboratories and also in ecologically natural settings to study them. And that's what basically in a nutshell I do, without getting further into perspective taking and other more complex social phenomena.
Great, thanks, Dr. Pelias. I also want to bring in Dr. Griffith if you want to share a little bit about your work.
Yeah, I think I will just try to give you a sense of some of the experiences that students might be interested in and over the kind of range of things that we can call research. So depending on where research projects are, sometimes there are opportunities for students to be involved kind of like at the data collection phase. So this is directly working with families. If it is an intervention study, this might be opportunities to actually deliver some interventions, learn and deliver some interventions that we're testing. It might be a chance to work to use assessment skills with children, families, teachers, whoever we're collecting data from, and get kind of that hands-on experience. There's also opportunities kind of later on in the research process to learn and practice working with data, right? What questions are we asking? How do we answer those questions with the data that we've then collected? Things like we have, data in the form of questionnaires, of course, but also video data. We have video data of classrooms, video data of parents and children, video data of all sorts of things that we can then try to answer questions based on. And so students can be involved with that sort of thing. And then on the writing process as well. So some students are interested in kind of strengthening their own skills with literature review and with writing and kind of understanding how that process works. And so several students have been involved in publishing work with our faculty, and you would be welcome to do that as well if that is something that interests you. So just to let you know that when we say research, there's just a multitude of experiences depending on your interests and what faculty happen to be doing at any given time that kind of count in this area.
Absolutely. Thank you. Dr. Lazarus, do you want to share more about the field experiences?
Yes, it would be my pleasure. And what we have at the end of our program is an internship. And as Dr. Pham said, the internship is full-time, and it typically lasts for the entire school year. And all our interns are actually paid, and they've been paid for at least the last 15 years, so that's doing very well. They get different salaries ranging from $20,000 to up to like $48,000. And so that's a nice salary, especially the last one. And as part of their studies, they work from the same hours as school psychologists do in the school system. And most of the folks that do work in a particular district get offers from the district in which they work. It's very, very exciting right now in terms that there's such a broad need for school psychologists. So there is a shortage. And if you do graduate and you do well, you can easily have multiple job offers upon graduation. And so it also enables you to go all across the United States and internationally to work as a school psychologist. And each district has their strengths and weaknesses. I'd say about 70% of the interns work in the Tri-County area, which is Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. And we have a few that work in different areas of the state. And usually we have maybe one or two interns work out of state. And everybody seems to enjoy their experience. John Smith is, I don't know if he's here, I see his picture. He might say a couple of things about his internship if he's there.
Oh, yeah. So good evening once again. This is John Smith. As I mentioned previously before Dr. Lazarus joined the call, I am doing my internship in Miami-Dade County. I'm also a special scholar. So I do receive, tuition reimbursement or a waiver. And I'm also receiving a stipend from the Miami-Dade County Public Schools. I receive a check once a month for my labor and for the service I provide to the students in the district, and also it's a good exchange because I'm also receiving hours toward my 1,200 hours that are required for graduation, as well as the experience. But I mean, as Dr. Lazarus mentioned, I'm in the higher bracket in the 40s. So I've been really, fortunate to have that opportunity. And all the interns there, I think there are about 12 from various different universities. They're all paid. And the salaries do vary based on funding. So, I mean, it is a win-win situation. And once again, I encourage you all to, continue pursuing this career path and do your research. And when I was going in as a guidance counselor, I didn't receive any compensation for my internship. So I really am very surprised and very fortunate once again to have that stipend and all of the other perks that are involved, as well as the ability to, be able to work as a school psychologist in any district throughout the United States or maybe internationally, like Dr. Lazarus mentioned. Um, but overall, it's been a wonderful experience. We have a great cohort, a great faculty who support us with our educational needs or any kind of questions we may be having in terms of our internship experience. We have group supervision, which is biweekly. So if there's anything that's happening throughout our internship or we need to sort of process any cases or any information. We have a dialogue where you are always gathering biweekly to share our experience and what's happening. And if we have any questions about any assessments or how to, you know, address any certain students or any difficulties with students, because there are a lot of, difficult cases sometimes. And being a student, it's hard to navigate, but faculty and that group counseling that is very helpful. Even during the internship, they're not just dropping the ball and throwing us out there. We have that support ongoing. So that's all about my internship, Dr. Lazarus.
Thank you,
I
John.
don't think I have anything else at the
And
moment.
thank you, John. And real quickly, the internship officially ends typically at the end of the school year, but we have it set up that our students graduate in May. So they do get their degree typically before their internship is over, and then they are able to get a full-time paid position, as well. And John is doing part of his internship in more like an alternative type of school for children with more severe EBD disabilities. And he's also doing another part of his internship at an elementary school. So he gets a well-rounded experience.
Great, thank you. I'll share a little bit about the practicum. I know there were a couple of comments or questions in the chat. So we're sort of going backwards. So the first year students do observe in their first year a shadow school psychologist for 4 days in the semester. We are trying to incorporate more field experiences in the first year. But right now, because the districts also work with other universities, there is sort of a limit to how many students are placed. But right now, we are, or this first year students would be observing. The second year is when the students are applying what they've learned from their courses now into the school setting. So we do require at least 1 day a week in the schools for 2 semesters. So accumulating about 150 hours per semester or a total of 300 hours for the year. Now, there have been some changes recently based on feedback from supervisors, particularly if you are currently working full-time. Obviously, for internship, students do have to take the year off to complete the full-time internship. For a practicum, even though you may be working in the school, unfortunately, we cannot place you in a practicum in the same school that you're working at. So you do have to make arrangements to be at a different school. Part of the reason is potential conflicts of interest. And so we do want to avoid that because if you're a teacher in the school, you really shouldn't be a practicum student in the same school. It's just a dual role. So we do ask students to make accommodations to work with their principal, to take at least 1 day off to work or to be a practicum student. So I know that may not be feasible for some But that is something that we do try to emphasize earlier on so you can make preparations. So 1 day a week in the schools is the minimum for field practicum, and then internship. Students typically take the year off from their teaching position to complete their internship.
Okay, one comment in regard to some of the chats I've been responding to. We do in our handbook have a schedule of how many classes students can take depending upon the number of hours that they are working. And so if you're working like 10 hours, you can pretty much go full time, 20, you may have to look in terms of a 4-year program. We do not, want students to go full time as a student and full time as an employee. That's really too much. And we want all our students to be successful. And if a student does or needs to work full time, then they should be looking in terms of a longer program. And we don't discriminate. So in terms of how long you can be in the program. So some people like to just go straight through for 3 years, but you can go 4 or 5, and that's fine. Or if your situation changes, you can go from maybe part-time to full-time or full-time to part-time. It's a little bit more difficult to schedule that when you change from part-time to full-time or full-time to part-time, but can often be done.
Right. There is a maximum. So Dr. Lasses is correct that students can complete the program beyond the 3 years if it takes a little bit more time, and that is perfectly fine. But the graduate school policy does provide a maximum of 6 years. So students do need to graduate by their 6th year. If there are reasons that would explain a longer time in the program, particularly if it's medical or family, I mean, we can definitely take that in consideration. But yeah, there is a time limit in terms of when students should be able to graduate. We do have experiences regarding the CCF, or the Center for Children and Families. Dr. Griffith, would you be able to share more about that since you're an affiliate?
Sure. So there is a center on campus that is a research and clinical center as well. The Center for Children and Families. So a lot of research projects, a lot of times around studying the effects of interventions on children. Those are run through the center, as well as direct clinical services, like through a community clinic that is there as well. So students in the past have had opportunities to kind of do additional practical experiences through the CCF. And this can help with kind of increasing your experiences with intervention, with delivering intervention, whether that be to a group of parents or to children with selective mutism or to children with externalizing behavior. So every summer, especially, there are several treatment camps that are held by the Center for Children and Families at various schools and other locations that students may take the opportunity over the summer to get involved with to get some extra practicum experience if that is of interest.
Okay, can I respond to a question on the chat?
Yeah, absolutely.
As it relates to an internship? In regard to, you have a preference to work with adolescents, and I think that would be certainly fine. And quite often during the internship, we could have you, half-time placed in a middle school or in a high school as well. But the real concept and the emphasis on our program is to get experience working from K to 12. And also many of our students get pre-K experience as well. But if you are really interested in adolescence, probably during your internship, it could be set up that you work 50 or 60% of your time with adolescents, and that would not really be a problem at all.
Great. Yes, I was also responding to some questions in the chat. I think there was one related to, can hours be completed in a clinical setting for internship? So it will be a bit challenging. One of the reasons is that a lot of school districts, they will have expectations that students will or interns need to be there full time. Unless an arrangement is made between the school district to do half time and the other half time would be in a clinical setting, that's certainly a possibility, but that's usually arranged beforehand. But I will say we have never arranged that or done that in the past. But that could be a conversation we could try to plan. But otherwise, a lot of our internships are full-time in the school setting. And also just to make sure that students or interns receive the gamut of experiences so they are well prepared to work in a school setting when they're certified as a school psychologist. But there's certainly opportunities, particularly if students have had previous experiences, but many, if not most, if not all of our interns do work full-time in a school.
And another issue in regard to, working in a clinic or a private venue would be that if you want to get a paid internship, you have to be working in the schools 40 hours a week. And so, say if you said, well, I want to work as a school psychologist in a mental health clinic and work as a school psychologist in the school, that would be a very big challenge in terms of you receiving a paid internship.
Great. I know there are other questions. I'd be happy to answer some. So, Shamir, would you be able to maybe briefly talk about, you have a lot of information there. Can you share or can you
I
talk?
know, I'm sorry.
No worries. Yeah, no, I would love to answer your question. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was listening in and let's say, like someone is working full time and going to the program full time as well. For the internship out, like, can we extend that, like you said, into like the 4 and 5 year program, or is it like mandated that we have to complete like the internship like within like that only 4 years from joining the program and the practicum like early as well? Because I would like to know, can we do our courses within the first 3 years and then extend it to like a 4 and 5 to do the practicum and internship? If
So I will say internship has to be full-time, and we discourage students from working other jobs while doing internship.
Yeah,
And
it's 1 year we take to do
right.
it. Like,
Okay.
can we extend, extend the program and focus, on that 1 year doing internship? That was like what I was trying to say.
Yeah, so the other part, you could definitely take courses across 3 years. If you want to extend to a 4 or 5 year program, that is fine. That would probably be 2 courses a semester, and I think that is manageable when you're working at another job full-time. Does that help?
Pam,
Yes.
I think I'm reading the question, and what I'm reading is very, very explicit. Is if we could take the coursework, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 years, and then extend into 4 or 5 year track to accommodate the practicum and the internship requirements during those two last
Right.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
That could, oh, I don't know, that would be a real challenge. And well, you have to do your observational practicum, and that's required in your first course. So, that's something that we do require. And then we require 2 practicums, and each one needs to be about 120 hours. So it depends in terms of some flexibility. We've never done that. We've never done that before, but you would probably do a practicum either 1 or 2 days a week. And so even if we went that route, you may be able to work like half time or so, but we've never done that before. So it would have to be individually discussed with the program director. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry if it's not as clear, but yeah, I mean, I think that would be more individualized in terms of your planning. But we do want to make sure students are applying their skills from their courses and not hold out too long. And it's sort of why we try to emphasize as early as quickly as 3 years, so that when they're taking their courses, they have the foundation and being able to apply their skills alongside learning in their second year, and then being able to apply fully in their internship. But we can definitely discuss alternative plans. And we've had students with very individualized plans too. So it may just depend on your circumstances. And if there are certain barriers that would prohibit you from maybe taking additional classes or completing in a shorter period of time, we can discuss that as well.
Yeah. There's a question that was asked in regard to practicums during the summer. And if I was a student and I was working full time, that would be a great question that I myself would ask. But here is the issue in regard to practicums during the summer, and that is that if you wanted to do it in like June and July, August kind of thing, the problem is that you're not getting the full range of experiences. And most of the schools are closed, and you're only getting a brief look at what a school psychologist does, which may be just assessment in terms of dealing with particular cases and children that need to be evaluated. So you're not really getting a comprehensive look. And so you really need to get that, so you really have a good understanding of what a school psychologist does every day. And there's also, lack of supervisors, and that, it doesn't necessarily work real well. Though we have had some of our students do like a third practicum, and that's the children and families, because they have summer camps and all kinds of really cool opportunities during the summer to do like a third practicum. And that's worked out well. Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly. So students can accumulate some hours in the summer, as what Dr. Lazarus mentioned, but there does need to be a comprehensive experience, particularly in the fall or the spring. So students cannot just do a summer practicum only. I appreciate that question. Yeah, I know, particularly for teachers, it is difficult. We've done our best to try to accommodate. And I think historically we've done a good job. But at the same time, there are things, particularly when you're devoted to graduate school, there are times that need to be, certain expectations for the program, because we want to make sure students are prepared. That's really our main goal. But we do try to be flexible as best we can.
Yeah, it is kind of a interesting challenge because there is a shortage, and we want to get as many people into the program so that we can have a number of graduates to meet the shortage. And yet we want to also make sure that they get the best training possible. So, in some instances, we can have some level of flexibility, but we are hampered by making sure that everybody comes out and is very, very well trained so that they do a great job during their internship.
Mm-hmm. So I will address admissions, but I know there's some questions I'm sure our faculty and students can also answer. Oh, yes, I can answer this quickly. 73 credit hours does include the internship. So it's 10 credit hours of internship. For admissions, the deadline, we only do once a year admissions. And so we do only admit for fall, and our deadline for applications is January 15th. We do offer an interview day. We review the applications within a couple weeks, and then we invite a selected number for interview day. And usually interview day occurs before our national conference. We haven't really scheduled it specifically, but it will be sometime within mid-February or maybe after our conference. But yeah, we do try to do their interviews in February. You could see some of our requirements. 3.2 in the last 60 credit hours is not overall GPA, but the last upper division 60 credit hours. We do require a statement, a letter of intent. If you look at our webpage related to applications, it does provide sample questions you could use to address for your personal statement. We do require letters of recommendation, 3 letters. Preference will be given to those whose letters are written by faculty or professors. Now, we do understand that some have been out of school for a while, or applicants have been out of school. So it's definitely okay if you request letters from supervisors. We do want to make sure we get references, particularly they can attest to your likelihood to succeed in a graduate program. So if there are references who've been in graduate programs before and have graduate degrees, those would be very good references too. Resume or curriculum vitae, we do require some background in psychology. So 15 credit hours in psychology, those could be like a minor in psychology, or you could take those courses online or other universities. They don't need to be transferred. As long as there's somewhere in your transcript so that we see that you have a foundation, that's great. One of the questions I received, I think it was probably Nathaniel, who's probably on here. You do not need to have, you can still complete your coursework while you're applying. We do expect that applicants need to have their degree, undergraduate degree, conferred before our fall start date. So if you are graduating, for example, this upcoming spring or summer, you're still eligible, even though you may have not completed your coursework by the application deadline.
Okay, in regard to, I'm sorry, in regard to the question, are applications for Project DIG submitted before or after acceptance of the program? One needs to be accepted into the program first, and then you do a supplemental application for Project DIG. And you need to also remember that Project DIG relates to a commitment to work at Miami-Dade County Public Schools for 3 years. And also, if you're not a Project DIG scholar and you wish to work in another place, or you're not accepted into Project DIG, please note that your internship is also paid for no matter where you work. So if you're paying, say, $4,500 for your internship for 10 credits, whatever it's going to be, that's totally covered by the state. So you pay no tuition for 10 credits of your program.
Mm-hmm. And so just a little bit more about Project DIG. It is a collaborative grant with Miami-Dade County Public Schools. Students can still apply by January 15th, but we do look at the applications a little bit later and make decisions by the time of extending offers. So we do want to make offers as soon as we can. But you can see some of the information here. Enrollment can be full-time or part-time, but because this is a 5-year grant, which ends in 2027, we recommend no longer than 4 years. So we do hope to apply for a similar grant if the next competition or call for proposals, so that hopefully we can extend this opportunity for future cohorts. But we do have funding available for at least 7 to 8 students for this upcoming fall.
Andy, just to clarify for the students, in terms of when to submit an application for DIG or when to indicate their interest in Project DIG, we do prefer that that's done beforehand. Yes.
Yeah, it'd be great if it's before, but students can apply after, particularly if they want a little bit more information. But I think ideally before would be preferable.
So if you already know that you want to apply, think about submitting your application both for the program and for the project at the same time.
Yes.
Most streamlined so that we can tell you if you receive acceptance, if your financial package at the same time. That's always ideal.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Dr. Pham, I
Yes.
think there are 3 questions that I'm kind of checking to see that everybody's addressed. There's one question with respect to how many credits you can roll over from another coursework.
I think I tried to address that.
Sorry, you probably did.
Yeah, but it's okay. But I think it's good, particularly if others aren't able to see it. So we do accept up to 27 graduate credit hours if you accumulate or have a previous degree in a related field. There is a process for transferring courses that will be in our handbook, but we do evaluate syllabi as well as how well the courses relate or is aligned with our current courses. So it is a decision that we make after you accept our offer. We can't make those decisions prior to accepting the offer. So it is something that we will have discussions and we'll need information syllabi to determine equivalency of our coursework.
And there is also one question about, I guess, the answer is not related to DIG, but Project DIG, but it says how much the program, what is the cost of the program?
Oh, I actually have that as our last slide.
Okay.
I know we're running low on time, but I would say, I mean, I can show our last slide if that's one. And then do you want to cover assistantships? This is our program cost, $455 per credit hour. So it's roughly about 28,000 for the entire program. Internship is no cost. But you can see there are additional fees per semester. If you're a part of Project DIG, we cover only tuition, but we do provide stipends for our field experience, background checks, fingerprinting, travel, conferences. Yeah. But it's roughly 28,000. So in terms of additional financial supports, we would likely have at least 2 to 4 assistantships. Dr. Griffith received a large grant, which will fund at least 1 or 2. But you can see stipends range from 25 to 27. I do anticipate it might be higher for the next year. There are always discussions about increasing the stipends. But that's, I think, what GAs are making roughly by, for now, for 20 hours of work per week. You can see in terms of graduate credit hours, it does cover 9 credit hours for fall and spring and 6 credits in the summer. So it won't cover everything if you're doing full-time or 12 credit hours or 4 courses a semester, which is typical for full-time students. Okay, I know we're running a long time, but maybe if there are additional questions we can address. Otherwise, students, if you want to share more about your experiences, I know you've been handling some of the questions in the chat, which is great. Otherwise, yeah, I think we can answer more information. As I think John mentioned, we do have our student organization, SPSA, School Psychology Student Association, which is entirely student-led. It provides a lot of great activities, opportunities to engage in mentorship, community service, various activities to celebrate accomplishments. We also have a banquet at the end of each year as well, which students help organize. So feel free to ask questions, but I do want to try to end it here. Unless others want to also share information about our program.
There are a couple of questions in the chat that seem repeated.
Okay.
So one question is, can you be a part-time student while you're also in Project DIG?
Yes. However, I mentioned that as long as it's no more than 4 years, because we can't cover anything after our grant ends.
Another question about practicum in counties other than the tri-state area, so Lee, Collier, etc.
Oh, great question. So a lot of our practicum students have been in Miami-Dade, Palm Beach, and Broward. However, there was one year when I think we had 21 students in our program. There were a couple of students who did go to, was it Collier County? It is one of the farther counties in the west side. Do you remember, Phil? One of our students did go farther away, so it's possible.
But you have to be close enough to drive to campus. And then if you do come from Lee or Collier County, and even North Palm Beach, you got to realize that your classes are over around 7:40, and by the time you get to your car, it's about 8 o'clock, and then you could have a long drive home. But it's possible, and we've had students from both Collier and Lee County.
Yeah, thank you. So we definitely highlight why FIU. I think we've addressed in terms of what makes our program unique. In terms of faculty interests, we provide supervision. We have excellent students from diverse backgrounds, educational, professional backgrounds. So it's definitely a program worth considering if you're interested in psychology and education. sort of meld together and to work with students with mental health and academic needs.
And I would like to say that the cohorts of students are really strong. Students stick with each other. They become friends for life. Many of them, for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. We don't compete with each other in terms of being students, in terms of trying to be better than each other. We try to support each other. So it's a very good culture. And the faculty really work to help everybody as much and support the students as much as possible. And there's going to be challenges as you're going through the program. And so if you do have a good supportive cohort, it really makes things so much easier for you as a student. I'd advise you all to read the program handbook. And then we also have some newsletters going back some years. And I look at the newsletters because they're fun to look at. And they kind of highlight what the students have been doing. And they're fun to read. So, if you are interested, I think we got a great program. There are other great programs in the state as well, but we really love our program.
Before you leave, Kendall did provide a link. It's a feedback survey, very quick. We do appreciate any feedback that you have regarding our session because we do want to improve each year. So please take a minute to click on the link that Kendall provided in the chat and provide some feedback. We'll still stick around. We'll end the recording, but we'll still stick around if people have questions. But otherwise, thank you for joining our session. We look forward to seeing your application. And if there are questions or additional questions, feel free to reach out to our students or us as we provided our faculty emails. So otherwise, have a great evening.
Thank you so much, everyone. It was a
Thank
pleasure.
you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.